Hello students. So today also we are moving on with the same chapter, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Now in the last session we studied about the main event, that is fertilization, then all the post-fertilization events and structure we had started to study. So we studied about endosperm development and then embryo development, and also we studied about two types of embryo. So after that I told you main events take place, other two things, that is development of ovule into seed and development of ovary into fruit. So that part we are going to study today. Okay, so seed formation. Okay, so that is what we are starting with. So seed, when we say seed, you know that it is a product of sexual reproduction, and it's the final product of sexual reproduction. Now here seed, when we use the word seed, you know that which part has developed into seed. Okay, so you know that after fertilization it is ovule which is developing into seed. Okay, so ovule develops into seed, and when we study the structure of each seed, okay, we see mainly we see three parts. Okay, so seed consists of seed coat. Okay, so seed is having a protective layer which is called seed coat, then it has cotyledon or cotyledons depending on the species, and the embryo axis. Okay, so a typical seed will have these three structures: the seed coat, the cotyledons, and the embryo axis. Okay, so seed, I told you now the ovule is developing into seed, so we can call the seed, we can call it as a fertilized ovule. It's nothing but, seed is nothing but fertilized ovule which is containing these three structures. Okay, now you can see a diagram here. So cotyledon, so cotyledon is a thick structure which has lot of reserved food material. So in dicotyledonous seed we see two cotyledons. Okay, so cotyledons generally they are thick structures which have lot of reserved food materials. Okay, so the reserved food material is for the development of embryo. Okay, so it has all that reserved food which will be provided to the embryo for, that is for the seed germination. Okay, so that is a reserved food carried in cotyledons. Okay, so along with this you should know one more thing, that is a mature seed, we say that we can classify it into non-albuminous seed, albuminous seed. Okay, so what is the meaning of this non-albuminous seed? So non-albuminous seed means it is the seed which do not have any residual endosperm. So you know endosperm is a nutritive tissue which was there during the development, but by the time it develops into a seed, we will see that in some seeds all the endosperm will be used up. So completely endosperm will be used up, there will be no endosperm remaining in the seed, and that type of seeds we call it as non-albuminous seed. Okay, so what are these albuminous seed then? So in albuminous seed we see that a part of endosperm is retained. Okay, so not all the 100% of endosperm is not used up, a part of endosperm is remaining in the seed, and that seed we call it as albuminous seed. Okay, so as the seeds are formed, then the reserved food material or the nutritive tissue, that is cotyledons. Before that, during fertilization, like for the embryo development, the nutritive tissue will be the endosperm. Okay, so that is about non-albuminous seeds and albuminous seeds. Now, in some seeds, Okay, we will see that even the nucellus also remains. Now you know nucellus, when we studied the structure of ovule, okay, that is we studied the structure of anatropous ovule. So if you just recall that structure, there surrounding the ovule there was a tissue called as nucellus. Okay, so in some seeds you will see that part of nucellus also remains. Okay, so that type of seeds, like for example pepper. Okay, so in pepper we will see that even the nucellus, okay, is remaining, a part of it is retained, and this we call it as perisperm. Okay, so this can be a 1-mark question. What is perisperm? So we say the residual persistent nucellus in the seed, we call it as perisperm. Okay, so this can be a 1-mark question. Even this also, non-albuminous seeds and albuminous seeds. Okay, so example for non-albuminous seeds like pea and groundnut, albuminous seeds, castor, wheat, coconut, all this becomes albuminous seeds. Okay, and perisperm, that is in the seed, even the nucellus in some seeds, okay, a part of nucellus is also remaining, and we call this as perisperm. Okay, so that is the explanation for this seed, that is we have started with the cotyledon. Okay, now what about the seed coat? Now seed coat, now you should compare the structure of ovule when I am speaking about seed, because you know ovule has become seed. So just recall the structure of ovule also. You know that ovule has integuments, the outer covering. So that outer covering, okay, becomes seed coat. Okay, so seed coat will be a hard covering on the seed. So that is a protective layer which will be protecting the inner tissues and the embryo. Now on the seed, if you see, okay, there will be a small opening. Okay, so this one again, recall the structure of ovule. Okay, there was an opening called as micropyle. Okay, so I hope all of you can recall that. Integuments are covering the whole body of the ovule, and at one part there is an opening which is called as micropyle. So even in the seed, micropyle still exists, okay, a small opening. So this micropyle, this opening is for the exchange of gases, that is for the entry of oxygen and also for the entry of water during germination. Okay, so it makes way for the water to enter. Now you know when we soak seed, okay, we put it into the soil, we pour water, it germinates, right? So the water and oxygen which has to enter inside is through the micropyle which still remains in the seed. Now this micropyle, below this you can see a scar. Okay, so this scar, what you see is, again, compare it with the structure of ovule. It had a stalk called as funicle, and it was attached to the body of the ovule at a point called as hilum. Okay, so that makes a scar here. Okay, so as the seed matures, you will see that it will lose water. So as it loses water, it dehydrates, okay, and it enters into a stage which we call as dormancy, an inactive stage which we call as dormancy. So it attains a period of rest. It is losing water, okay, and the whole metabolic activity of the embryo also slows down once the seed matures, and it enters into a stage of dormancy. Okay, so that after dormancy, if in case if there is a proper climate, the temperature is appropriate, if there is availability of water, then you will see like maybe the seeds may immediately germinate. If not, it enters into a stage of dormancy. Along with that, then embryo axis. So you know that within the seed there is embryo also, and the development of that, structure of that we have already studied. Okay, so this will be the typical structure of a seed. So we studied about the seed formation. Okay, so another important event which takes place after fertilization is the formation of fruit. Now when we say fruit, you know that ovary is developing into fruit. So after fertilization, ovary is developing into fruit. So first we studied about ovule developing into seed. Now we are studying about ovary developing into fruit. Okay, but you should know that both the things are happening simultaneously. Okay, ovule developing into seed and ovary developing into fruit, both are happening at the same time. Okay, so fruit, okay, it is being developed from ovary. So you need to compare the structure now. So ovary wall, okay, the ovary wall is becoming the fruit wall. Okay, and now we use a separate term for that. For the fruit wall, it is called pericarp. This is again a 1-mark question. Okay, what is pericarp? So the fruit wall is called as pericarp. Okay, so now fruit which is developed from ovary, we say that it can be fleshy fruits. Okay, so we know some of the common examples like oranges, mango. Okay, all these are fleshy fruits. Okay, or it can be non-fleshy fruits. So non-fleshy fruits, for example, groundnut. Okay, so there the ovary is not fleshy, it is not developing into a fleshy structure. So based on that we say fleshy and non-fleshy fruits. Okay, so this is the development of fruit. Now when we study the structure, the whole development of fruit, okay, when we see that, we see fruits can be divided into two groups: false fruits and true fruits. Now what is the meaning of that one? Now just now I told you that fruit is developing from ovary. Okay, so when that is the case, that type of fruit we call it as true fruit. Only ovary is developing into fruit. Now what are these false fruits? In these fruits, for example, I have done a diagram here, apple. Okay, so here what happens is, along with ovary, some other part of the flower also takes part in the formation of fruit. Okay, so usually that doesn't happen. Now you know that during fertilization, that is after fertilization, once the fruit and seed are forming, all the other floral parts will degenerate. Okay, but in certain cases we will see that along with ovary, the other part of the flower, so usually it is thalamus. Okay, so the thalamus, or we also call it as receptacle, that is a basal part of the flower on which all the other organs are attached to. It's a small disc-like structure on which the flower, the androecium, the gynoecium, the petals, everything will be attached. Okay, so that is the base of the flower, which is like a disc shape. That is called receptacle, or we also call it as thalamus. Now this is also becoming a part of the fruit. Now when that is the case, we call that type of fruits as false fruits. Okay, so if only ovary is developing into fruit, we call it as true fruit. False fruit is along with that some other part of the flower, usually it is thalamus, okay, which becomes a part of the fruit, and that for a type of fruit we call it as false fruits. Okay, so this is one example. See, this is a seed. This pulpy part, what is edible, is actually not the ovary but the thalamus, which has become into fruit. Okay, so another example is strawberry, cashew nut. Okay, so all this you will see that fruit has developed not only from the ovary, but the other part, usually the thalamus, also becomes a part of the fruit, and that type of fruit we call it as false fruits. Okay, so that is about false and true fruit. This can also be 1-mark question, each one. Okay, so what are true fruits and what are false fruits, or you can get a 2-mark question asking for both. Okay, so that was about true fruit and false fruit. Now you need to another concept. Okay, now when I say fruit, you know that it is only after fertilization seed formation happens, fruit formation happens. Okay. Now there is one more thing you have to study about parthenocarpic fruits. Now what is this parthenocarpic fruits? Fruits which are formed without fertilization. Okay. So here fruits are formed without fertilization. So without fertilization fruits are getting developed, and that type of fruit we call it as parthenocarpic fruits. Now in nature, naturally we see some fruits, like a best example is banana. Okay, so banana is a parthenocarpic fruit. So apart from that, we can actually induce parthenocarpy. Artificially we can make the flower to develop into a fruit without fertilization by inducing certain growth hormones, especially like auxins, gibberellins. So you have read about these growth hormones in your last year syllabus. Okay. So plant growth hormones or plant growth regulators we say. Okay. So auxins and gibberellins, these can be like sprayed and made the artificially we can induce, okay, parthenocarpy. Okay, so apart from that, naturally, now this can also be a 1-mark question. You give an example. Okay, what is parthenocarpic fruit or what is parthenocarpy? Give one example. Then you need to write the definition. That is, the fruits which are formed without fertilization is called as parthenocarpic fruits. Example, banana. So now I told you about inducing parthenocarpy. So in the market you get seedless grapes. Okay, so all these are like induced one by spraying the growth regulators. Okay, so that is about the parthenocarpic fruits. Now we spoke about seeds and we spoke about fruits. Now what are the advantages of seeds? Okay, so advantages of seeds can also be asked as a 3 or 5 marks question. Okay. So what are the advantages of seeds to a plant? Okay. So first thing says the fertilization in angiosperms, it is independent of water. It is not at all depending on water. It may be pollination, it may be fertilization. Okay, all these reproductive events, it is not dependent on water. So because of that, seed formation also is very sure. So seed formation also is not at all dependent on water. So because of that, what happens is, even in the previous sessions I had told you, the other group of plants like bryophytes and pteridophytes, okay, their species, they don't spread worldwide. Okay, so they don't flourish like that. The main reason is this one, that there's a limiting factor, that they need water for fertilization. So whereas here, since there is no water required, okay, seed formation is independent of water. That's the first advantage. Second one is the seeds are helping in dispersal. Okay, so there are different mechanisms adopted by different species of plant for the spreading of the seeds. Okay, so seeds can be dispersed to different places. Okay, that one more example is like see birds. Birds eat fruits. Okay, along with that, the seeds are entering into their body. Okay, and these birds fly over to different places, and the bird droppings, okay, will have these seeds which will be dropped somewhere else, so many kilometers away from the tree, and there you will see a new plantlet arising. So the seed coat is very protective. It doesn't affect, that is the enzymes and everything in the body of the bird also, it is not affecting. The seed is as it is, dropped somewhere else, and it will grow. That is one advantage for flourishing, for spreading of the species to different areas. That is also helped by the seeds. That is the second one. Then the third one says food reserves, that is the seed has reserved food material. So I told you the cotyledons or maybe a part of endosperm, all these nutritive tissues are there, okay, and this reserved food is sufficient enough for the seed to germinate and till it becomes a plantlet, till the first pair of leaves arise, till the photosynthesis begins. Till that, what all food is required, the seed is already having the reserve. So that is another advantage of seed. Then the seed coat is very protective. So I told you, even it enters into the digestive tract of birds or animals, okay, it doesn't harm, the enzymes doesn't harm the seed because the seed coat is very hard and it protects the inner tissues as well as the embryo. Then variations. So seed, you know, it is a result of sexual reproduction, okay. So since it is a result of sexual reproduction, there are a lot of genetic, you can see that I told you about asexual reproduction, one parent involved. Remember that? Here sexual reproduction means two parents are involved. So new combinations, okay, genetic variation arises. So seed, okay, is one of the helping factor there where the variation arises in seed because it is a product of sexual reproduction. Okay, so that is the advantages of seeds to the plant. Now along with that, it is advantages to human beings also. You can think of agriculture. Now these seeds lose moisture, okay, it becomes dry and it attains a stage of dormancy, I told you. So because of that, it becomes easy for a farmer to store the seed, to sow it later, or imagine the seeds immediately germinating. You can't store it, right? So because of this, it is helping the farmers and also to we human beings where we can store the food, okay, because it enters into a stage of dormancy. So seeds, you know that we are consuming it, where it is a pack of maybe carbohydrate or proteins or whatever, okay. So it is helping humans in different ways. So now we are going to study about viability of seeds. Okay, so what do we exactly mean by viability? So if you just recall, I had used the same term when I was teaching you about pollen grains. So pollen grains, after they are released, I told you it remains alive for a certain period of time. That is called viability. Okay. Similarly, even for seeds also, we say that after the formation of seed, okay, for how long can they be alive? Okay, so that is called the viability. So this viability period, again, it varies from species to species. In certain species of plants, we see that the seeds remain viable for few months. Okay, in some species it goes up to several years, or even in certain species the viability period goes up to like hundreds of years. Okay, so when we say viability, that is the dormancy or the dormant stage, where I explained you now that all the metabolic reactions, the metabolic growth, all that it just slows down. Okay, so the seed, all the metabolic activities slow down and it enters a period of rest. So it is alive, but it's in a period of rest which we call as dormancy. Okay, so it remains viable, it remains alive for certain period. Now one of the oldest seed which was viable, okay, so one example is from the plant lupine. Okay, that is Lupinus articus. So this plant seed, it was excavated from Arctic tundra, okay, and the seed was almost 10,000 years old. But it was viable and it germinated, it produced the plant and also flowered. Okay, it's a flowering plant. It produced the flower also, taking a break for 10,000 years, 10,000 years of dormancy. That is, it was viable even after 10,000 years. So that is one of the oldest record of seed remaining viable for such a long time. And the recent record is the seed of date palm, okay, that is Phoenix dactylifera. Okay, the seed was 2000 years old. Okay, it was viable, the seed was viable, it was alive, which was 2000 years old, and it was collected during the archaeological excavation at King Herod's palace that was near the Dead Sea. Okay, so these are some of the example, that is the extremes. Okay, certain conditions where the seeds remain viable for so many thousands of years. Okay, so apart from this, normally when we look around, okay, the plants, the angiosperms which are around us, as I told, at the dormancy period, it will vary from few months to few years or even hundreds of years. Okay, so that is about the viability of seeds. Now after that, we have to study about another few concepts, Apomixes and Polyembryony. Now seed is the product of sexual reproduction, that is confirmed. It is any plant, when we use a word seed, it means that it is a result of sexual reproduction. But in certain plants, okay, in some plants like Asteraceae, okay, and even some grasses also, we see that they will adapt a special mechanism where seeds are produced without fertilization. Okay, so seeds are produced without fertilization, and this we call it as apomixes. Okay, so this is again a 1-mark question. What is apomixes? So apomixes, it is actually asexual reproduction, which is which mimics sexual reproduction. So why do we use the word mimic here? Okay, asexual reproduction, it is apomixes is actually asexual reproduction. It is pretending to be sexual. How? In what way? Because it is producing seed. Seed means it is actually sexual, but here you will see that it is asexual. Without fertilization, seeds are produced. So it is actually asexual reproduction which mimics sexual reproduction, where seeds are produced without fertilization. Now just before this, I told about Parthenocarpi. Their fruits were produced without fertilization. Here apomixes means seeds are produced without fertilization. Okay, so how does that happen? So sometimes we see that diploid egg cell will be formed. You know that egg cell are always haploid, okay, because reduction division take place. But sometimes we see that diploid egg cell will be formed without reduction division, and it develops into embryo, and you will see that without fertilization it is developing. Or we can also see that some of the nucellar cells. Now you know that embryo sac is surrounded by nucellus. So some of the nucellar cells will protrude into the embryo sac and it will develop into embryo. So you should know that nucellar cells are diploid. Okay, so these will protrude into the embryo sac and it is developing into embryo. Okay, so these are some of the possibility how seeds are produced without fertilization. When this is a case, okay, when many like nucellar cells are protruding inside, many embryos are formed, in the same way you will see that it will cause polyembryony. Polyembryony means a seed will have many embryos. Okay, so seed will have many embryos, that is the term what we use as polyembryony. That is occurrence of more than one embryo in a seed. Okay, so occurrence of more than one embryo in a seed is called as polyembryony, which we see in some of the citrus fruits also. Okay, so these are the questions which you can expect for 1 mark. What is apomixes? What is polyembryony? Okay, so now with all this, with the complete information what we have. We will speak about hybrid varieties of plants. So, we are applying the knowledge from this into that. That is, now all of you are aware of hybrid varieties of crops, hybrid varieties of vegetables and fruits which we use. Okay, it is extensively produced. It is produced in in large number. Okay, so one thing is it is of the superior quality, the fruits or vegetables which are produced, and also hybrid plant yields more. So productivity also is more. So in that way, hybrid variety, it is all the positive things we know about that. Okay, but what is a problem is hybrid seeds, okay, have to be produced every year. Okay, like the normal seeds, the farmer cannot use the same seeds for sowing for the next year after year. That cannot happen here, because if we are collecting the seeds from the hybrid plant and we are trying to raise the next generation, what happens is segregation takes place there. Okay, then the hybrid character will not be maintained in the progeny. So the character which we are actually looking for, okay, because of segregation, what happens is the progeny will not have those hybrid characters. It cannot be maintained. Because of the sexual reproduction, what happens? Segregation will take place. Okay, so because of this, what happens is, if farmer is opting for hybrid seeds, every year he need to buy, and hybrid seed production is costlier, therefore the whole process is costlier, therefore hybrid seeds are also costly. So farmer has to buy every year new hybrid seed and he has to sow. After that, the same seeds he cannot use, that is the after that the seeds what he get after harvesting, he cannot use it for raising the next generation. So every year he has to go for new seeds, he has to spend more money. So now, since we have the knowledge of apomixes, okay, so I told you what is apomixes. Seeds are produced without fertilization. So here there is one plus point. Seeds without fertilization means the character from the parent is like exactly passed on to the progeny, right? There is no segregation happening there. So if this knowledge we can use it for raising the hybrid varieties of crops, then that means if the hybrid varieties are made into apomix, okay, then what happens is the farmer need not buy the hybrid seeds every year. Like the normal seeds, he can actually use the same seeds year after year, okay, generation after generation for raising the crop, and also the hybrid characters also will be maintained there because their seeds are produced without fertilization. So, lot of work, research work is going on all over the world to make this hybrids into apomix. Okay, so possibly like once everything works out, then it will be a boon for the farmers, where he can actually save a lot of money without spending it every year to buy the hybrid varieties of seeds. Okay, so that was about apomixes and polyembryoning. Okay, so with this we complete this chapter. So in today's explanation there was no much diagram. Okay, I have given some of the questions as assignment. Okay, so I want all of you to write this question and answers into your book. Okay, and you can post it in the link given. Okay, so the first question is, what is perisperm? Okay, that is a 1 mark question. Then what are true fruits and false fruits? Okay, that is a 2 marks question. What are the advantages of seeds to plants? So I have explained about different advantages, like how is it advantageous to the plant, you need to list it down. What is apomixes and what is polyembryony? These are also 1 mark question. Okay, so I want all of you to write the answers okay, and you can post it in the link, or if you have any doubts in this chapter, any queries, that the questions also you can ask me, okay, and you can post it in the link given below. Okay, thank you. Have a good day.